Well, welcome to another edition of the East Meets West Prime Lending Podcast. My name is Al Velasco, and once again, I'm joined by my friend and colleague, as we like to call her KB, Karen Blakeslee. KB, how are you today?
Man, I am awesome. It feels like spring here. So don't know that I've ever been this ready for spring.
What does
It
that
is
mean?
good.
What does it mean, spring in North
It
Carolina?
means, yeah. Okay, let's clarify. I'm not buried in snow country like you are, but it is stopped raining, so that's number one. It's not gray. We don't like a lot of gray skies here in North Carolina, and it's just like a really balmy day, 65, 68 degrees,
Well, I know you
flowers.
live in North Carolina, and I think I told you a couple days ago that Jen and I escaped to South Carolina for a few days, a week or so ago. It rained almost the whole time. So I don't know what happened to your commerce, advertising that you guys always do about sunny skies in North and South Carolina, but it was like we just kept having these waves of rain came through day after day. It was kind of crazy.
I know. I don't know if you remember, but when I asked you how it was, I kind of hesitated because I knew it had been raining for like 10 straight days,
Yeah.
which is unusual. I'm sorry about that. You'll
Well,
have to just come back.
next time we'll have to go to North Carolina. That'll probably
We'll
make it a little
see.
better.
Definitely.
So, as typical, nothing real interesting going on in the mortgage real estate market. We've got the National Association of Realtors settlement kind of stealing a lot of the headlines. And then we've got the Fed meeting, I believe, today and tomorrow. So, as
Yeah.
usual, kind of a crazy market, crazy industry. And I don't know what you're hearing on the NAR stuff, but there's been all kinds of chatter on the news about it.
Oh man, I feel like it is. There's just so many dozens of articles, and depending on which one you read, you're going to have a bit of a different takeaway. All the way from nothing's going to change to everything's going to change to the reality, which is very likely somewhere in the middle as usual, right?
Well, and it's just like everything, like it'll settle out, right? From a mortgage perspective, I don't really think there's anything that we can do to address some of the concerns that have been raised. But I think we're definitely going to be in a wait and see posture. But it's big news. It's certainly going to change the way that people do real estate, and depending on how you listen to, there's some first time home buyers, veterans that could be disadvantaged from the way that it's laid out now. So lots
Right.
of things to be addressed, but never a boring moment in our chosen industry.
No. And I'll just go ahead and put a shameless plug in. It's never been more important to have a really talented, local, knowledgeable lender.
Yeah. So, what are your predictions on the Fed? I know that you're a big Fed watcher.
Oh,
So, rates going higher or lower, sooner or later?
I think they're going to keep their finger on the pause button, and then it will really just be not do anything and just wait to, hear all the little nuanced verbs and adjectives that Chairman Powell uses when he makes his address tomorrow. What do you think?
Well, as you know, I've been in the camp that rates are probably going to drop a little further than what most people think.
Yeah.
And I've probably shared that with more people than I should have, because about every other day somebody sends me an email saying, "Hey, how you feeling now, Al, about your prediction about interest rates?" But I'm still sticking to my guns. I think that when you look at the Fed and you look at the history of the Fed, they seldom get it right. And I think that they could find themselves in a situation where data could soften maybe quicker than what they think, and they might have to get a little bit more aggressive. I certainly don't think that we're probably going to get 6 rate cuts like some people suggested, but I still think we could get 4 or 5, and I still think potentially it could happen a little sooner than June. But I'm certainly not in the camp of the majority at the moment. So I'm just going to kind of stay where I'm at and see if I'm right. And I'm hoping for probably everybody on this call, they're probably hoping that I'm right. So you can
Hey, put
send
me in
cookies.
put me in that camp. I'm in the
That's right.
camp hoping that you are incredibly right, hugely right.
Well, time will tell. Well, let's jump right into it, KB, in our Lens Setter segment, because we've got a guest today that I'm really excited for everybody to hear from. For those of you that have been at Prime for some time, Myron Chamberlain is somebody that you've probably known of, and many of you have probably met before. And so we're excited to have Myron with us today. I learned I've known Myron for a number of years, and I I thought I knew most things about him, but I didn't realize that Myron was actually from Canada. I know that he's got family that hangs out in Minnesota. So now it's trying to it makes some sense to me that they started in Canada, and at some point in time they just drove a little further south and ended up in Minnesota, because I know Myron has some family in Minnesota. But he and his wife Becky, I believe, moved to Arizona. Oh no, you met your wife in 2003. You guys moved to Arizona, and then in 2005, that window, you were there permanently. You graduated from Zinnick's Mortgage Academy in 2006 and began a career in mortgage lending, which is really cool. Myron has 5 kids: Charlie, Anders, Johnny, Chase, and Christian. And we're going to talk a little bit more about Myron's family and share a story that I think you guys are going to find really cool and I think inspiring as well a little later on in the podcast. Myron's been active in his church for many years in Arizona. He's also a real estate investor, so he dabbles in real estate, on the side, as he's doing his mortgage biz. He's just a really all-around, really cool guy. I know he's a big baseball fan, a big Diamondbacks fan, and so somebody that I just have a lot of respect for, and I'm really excited for Myron to share a few things with us. So, Myron, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thanks so much for having me on. Couldn't think of a better place to be and better people to be here with. So I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be great.
Well, speaking of weather, you're probably dealing with 75, 80 degrees, sunny now these days. Every day's the same.
That. Yeah, but this morning it was like 45, and our boy says, "Dad, it's cold outside." So it we get a little soft here, shall you say, this time of year.
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons we wanted to have you on the podcast is because, as we've talked with some of our other guests on the show, we've obviously been navigating a really difficult market, over the past couple of years, and we're all hoping for greener pastures. But, you're an example of a guy that has a plan, and you run your plan. And regardless of what's happening in the market, you've proven that your plan works, when rates are high or rates are low, when inventory is high or when inventory is low. And so we just thought it'd be really great for everybody to hear a little bit about how you're working this market, how you're addressing this market, and kind of how you're deploying your team, based on some of the challenges that you're experiencing down in Arizona.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, glad to share everything I know. And I thought it would be good to do so more in bullet point fashion, just kind of sharing with you, I guess, 10 tips and principles that our team lives by, that I try to live by, and ones that I feel will just overall contribute to success in life and in business.
Great. Well, let's hear it.
Yeah. So one of the most prevalent themes that we've been hearing about the last 2 weeks, or 2 months, 2 years, is day one certainty. And I thought, why don't we put together 10 day one certainties for life and business? So that's what I did. And we'll just go through 10. I've got 5 for business. We'll start with those. And then I've got 5 for life. We'll move into those. And we'll just see where the podcast goes.
Great.
Okay.
So number 1, this is a principle our team has really applied for probably 13 years. And that's our team pipeline meeting. It's something that most teams do. Many loan officers do it. Many should do it. And a couple principles that we've used for that is, 1, I firmly believe that pipelines need to be done on Monday. And the reason I like Mondays is because it gives you the week to plan for opportunities and to solve problems. If you do pipelines later in the week, too much of the week has already passed, and time that you could have spent solving problems has passed as well. So I never like it to be first thing out of the gate Monday morning. To me, it should be between 10 and 11 o'clock. That gives everybody on the team 3 hours to clear the decks, get a read on their problems and their files. And so I personally feel like we've had success in part because we've deployed very rigid pipeline meetings on our team at 11 o'clock Monday mornings. So that's number 1. And before the pipeline, I send out a message saying, be on time, come to learn, come with ideas, and be a participant to share.
So, how many people are on your team?
There's 7 of us. And so we have the first 10 minutes is really kind of like what you'd call family time or family discussion. So it's how was your weekend? How's your life? How's your family, kids? And it's important to build that sense of camaraderie within the team. It really allows people to feel like the team becomes family. And so we start every meeting with 10 minutes of family time. And then from there, we move into product updates, guidelines, changes, and tips that we should know. And then the last probably 30 to 40% of the meeting is going through files. We typically take 20 to 30 seconds per file, and the team loan officer and processor should be ready to chip in with here's where it's at and any potential problems.
You know what? It's such a small nuance, Myron. I got to jump in and say this, but just like I think the majority of loan officers do their pipeline meetings on Mondays. I think that's pretty common. And you're right. There's some that aren't doing them at all, and they absolutely should be. But most of them that I know do them right out of the gate Monday morning versus let everybody get in, let them, get themselves squared away, get an update on anything and everything that they need to. And then they come to the meeting just a lot more prepared. So you don't have as much, I got to check on that. I got to follow up on that. I got to call so-and-so. That's very cool.
Yep.
And how much preparation do you have to do for those, Myron, personally? Because I'm assuming you being the team lead, you're the one that's kind of leading that review every week.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, it's incumbent upon the leader to have things to share. And so what I do is in my emails, I have a separate file called pipeline. So every week as I get updates, they go instantly into pipelines. I usually am on one training call per week. That goes in there as well. And that's outside. So that's specifically team pipeline related and our pipeline meeting. Many times I'll send the team a message sometime between 5 and 6:30 in the morning. And that's usually a text message with videos that I've watched that morning, either on product updates, YouTube videos, motivational videos, things of that nature. So I'm consistently doing that throughout the week, but then specifically focus on the pipeline through my email inbox and prepping there for the Monday meetings.
Great.
Yep. Principle number 2 that I heard, actually, I believe it was at a prime lending rally maybe 10 years ago. And Lou Holtz was there speaking, and he said, guys, you got to be excited about your problems because you're the one that's there to solve them. And that quote has stuck with me.
Oh, he was the best, huh?
Yeah, he was so good. And I just heard that, and I thought, how often is it just in our nature to say, well, I don't have all the answers, I'm going to push it off. Or I don't want this person to get mad, I'm going to push it off. It's in everybody's DNA to do it, and it takes practice to get good at following Lou's advice. But I feel that when I do that and when the team does that, it causes everybody to keep very short accounts of problems, and it causes you to spend the majority of your time operating in a very happy and positive environment, as opposed to one that's just always encumbered with problems.
I love that. Bullet point 2, get excited about your problems, right, KB?
Oh, man.
We can relate to that.
I could listen to Holtz all day. Simple, straightforward, and every one of them hits. That's great.
Well, it is, and it is so simple, though. And really, when you think about it, I mean, much of what we do, regardless of what our role is that, we're problem solvers. And sometimes, especially as we've navigated this past year, it seems like you show up at the office and all you have is problems and challenges. And it's just so easy to kind of get down and discouraged by it all. But just having that mindset that, hey, I'm going to get excited about the opportunity I have to solve all these problems. It's just a little shift. But I can imagine that as you're leading a team that's in the trenches every day, that just level sets everybody, right? It's like, okay, we've got some rocks we got to move in front of ourselves, but let's be excited as a group about accomplishing it, and even more importantly, having the confidence that and you have the track record that you're going to be able to do it. So I love that.
Totally.
I love that.
Yeah. It's huge. I mean, it sounds so simple, and it is simple, but the implications I can think of just this week, the two biggest successes I've had this week started off with what I thought, these are problems. These are big problems. And one of which takes about 30 seconds to share, but I think it brings this to light. So last night I get an email from my top agent right before I'm leaving for the day. My day was going great up to this point. He says, "Hey, Myron, I was thinking maybe my wife should get licensed as a loan officer. I think that would be the logical next step. We're really wanting to blow up our income and things like that." Well, here you are saying, well, you can kind of see where this is going, right? And so instantly you can say, well, I'll just ignore it. Or I can say, I've got to run into this situation in order to make the best of it. And so I knew that was coming from his brother, who was a recruiter at another lending company, and they have a relationship where they can commission split and things of that nature. And so I kind of knew where it was coming from. I got to call the brother here before I leave today. And it was already 6:30 at night. So I call the brother on the way home and say, tell me about this program you have. I mean, how does it work? How are things shared? Where's the legalities of it? And I just thought, I got to research this. So then I get to the office this morning and I call the agent up, and I had a call with him for an hour, and I was running at the time, and I ran for 5 miles, talked to him for a full hour. I was running, and it was the most encouraging and uplifting phone call I've had, from him encouraging me and me encouraging him on different things in life. And I thought I would have never had the opportunity to have that phone call if I, one, focused on the problem, and number two, after hours last night, didn't run after it to come up with a solution. And so it totally made my day today, but obviously last night my perspective was a little different.
Yeah, but you're not leading from fear, Myron. I think that's one of the things that jumps out at me, right? Like, okay, here it is. Let's just get after it. Let's just figure out what good next steps are and who we need to talk to. And then, like you said, you were perfectly aligned to have a great conversation this morning that if never would have happened otherwise.
And it's fear. Fear every time is because you don't know the answer. When you know it, there's no fear because you know it, and then it's just a matter of talking about it. That's it.
Well, and the whole start of that is just, again, it's that attitude that you're going to run to the problem. That
Yes.
would have been just an easy thing, especially based on the time of day it was, to say, okay, I'm just going to kind of let this thing play out, and I'm not going to try to address it. And it's funny that you should say that you were running at the time, because I remember one time I called you in the morning and you were rollerblading to work.
Yeah.
So yeah. I know that probably isn't in your presentation, but one of the things that you could probably include in your presentation is that you're always on the go, and even though you're on the go, you're always working. So I'm sure there's a balance there sometime, but it doesn't surprise me that you were having this conversation as you were running. That's typical Myron.
Well, it's good. Yeah. I mean, you could always, Siri is great for that. Hey, Siri, read my text messages. And, not now. There's a lot of work you can accomplish while you're on the go. So never take it as a dull moment.
Yeah.
I'm just going to, it's definitely not Myron's first run either. To be able to have a really cognizant, coherent, high level conversation while running, that ain't your first rodeo, Myron. You know how to run and talk, man.
Yeah, that's good. No, that was great. So that was number 2. Be excited about your problems because you're the one that's there to solve them. Number 3, the principle is be a gracious loser. And where I've seen this played out time and time again in my career, and almost everybody's been in this situation where you put so much time and investment into a client, you love the client, you want to help them, and then all of a sudden they go somewhere else. I've seen so many loan officers over the years burn bridges when that happens, and they get put off. They reply a little bit more abruptly. They're not as courteous to the client. And what I tell the team is you have to be so gracious and excited for that client because they're excited. They still want to buy the home. They want to move, and they have a path that they want to go on. So encourage them in the route that they're going, compliment the other lender for winning the business, and be as gracious as you possibly can. And when we've employed that mindset, I cannot tell you how many times the client all of a sudden feels, oh my, they're being so nice about it. I wish I was using them. Sometimes you get the client back right there. Other times, 2 weeks in, hey, this isn't working out like I thought. You were so welcoming. Will you welcome me back? So be a gracious loser. I think that is so important to keep in mind.
Man. you never ever go wrong staying on that high road, right? You just don't
No, and it's
don't lose your
so
path.
easy. Every part of you wants to say, get the last word in and come down on why you're better, but just leave that at the side. Be gracious in complimenting them and excited for them, and they'll love you, even if that means, the loan goes a different direction. So, okay, that was number 3. Number 4 is, I've told the team for years and years, no means maybe, maybe means yes. And I don't know that needs a lot of explanation, but I cannot tell you how many times I've seen people give up when the answer was no. I see it almost every week within different people. Underwriting tells you no, a borrower tells you no, a realtor tells you no. People tell you no all the time. And I firmly believe that probably 50% of the time you get told no, the no was never really a right no to begin with. Many times that's the case.
So, Myron, I'm guessing in this environment, and a lot of people that are watching this can probably really relate to that, but I'm curious, even somebody that is as experienced as you are, you've probably been on the receiving end of more no's or maybes recently. So how do you personally deal with that? Especially as you're leading a team. And I'm assuming that you have team members who will come to you in environments like this, and they're frustrated because they're getting more no's than yeses. So you still struggle with that, or is it something that because of the experience that you have, it's easier for you to get over the no's?
I would say a quote years ago that someone I believe attributed it to Ronald Reagan. He always said, "Trust but verify." And I thought that's exactly what loan officers need to do. Is you got to be polite, you got to trust, but don't ever take it to be the gospel truth unless you verified it yourself. And whether it's a lot of times in our business, I mean, while we have phenomenal underwriters, they are human too, and they do make mistakes. And it's all about, everybody's making judgment calls. That's really what it is. There's very little there's some black and white, but a lot of it is judgment calls. And so when you recognize that until you have verified that yourself, at least through 2 or 3 different sources, the answer is still, it's still an open topic and up for debate.
Sure.
And you just have to have that mindset, because loans get closed when you have that mindset. And I think of an old underwriter that used to work at Prime Lending years and years ago, and she finally told me, she said, "Myron, you must have worn your poor mama out." She said, and well, it's true, because I believe what we're doing is right, and I feel like that's the answer that we have to get to. So just have that persistent mindset.
I love it. And it works just as, I would imagine, just as equally with when you're on the phone with a client who says no, or, I'm not going to move ahead, or I'm going to go somewhere else, just taking that no, like you said, really graciously, but then what? Staying in touch and making sure they're okay? Or what do you do for next steps?
Well, absolutely. I mean, there's times where they're done talking to you and it's a no and it's a no. And then you just have to very quickly move on. And the faster you do that, and you do not ruminate on the issue, you just move on, it becomes a very forgettable situation. But if you're leaving on good terms, I usually ask for permission to check in. So once I've taken it as far as I can, I'll say, "Is it okay if I call you in 2 days?" And if they just say, "No, I'm done," there's your answer. I'll leave that as a no. But frequently, when you ask for permission in that way, they're open to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Who doesn't want to be checked on, right? I mean, that's very low, it's not threatening at all. It's just a caring gesture.
Yep.
Very cool.
Yep, no doubt about it. So that's the fourth. No maybe means yes. And I'll end on this one. This is number 5, and this is something that on the team we've said for years and years, is that Your slowest time should be your busiest time. Everybody has asked somebody, how you doing? Well, things are really slow right now. Well, they're only slow because you're not finding profitable things to do. And so if you're to fill up your schedule with productive, profitable things, you're not going to be slow. In fact, you're going to be very busy. So your schedule is all a function of how much you fill it, and it's all incumbent upon you to fill it or not fill it. And so there's no such thing as you should never have. I mean, slow days just should never exist for a loan officer, because your slowest time should always be your busiest times.
Well, in some ways, that goes back to what you started with, which was the whole idea of planning out your day and having those team meetings and talking about the fact that, hey, if we lack applications or we lack sales activities, you've got to have a plan for where you planting seeds and what seeds are you planting, because I think that's probably been the secret to you consistently being able to produce at a high level, because you're always planting seeds, you're always busy, you're always doing things because you've thought through it. You know, if we're not going to be busy today taking applications because it's slow, or we're not going to be busy, talking to customers, what other activities can we do to fill our day that at some point in time are going to bear fruit? So
absolutely. And it's when you really have that as part of your mindset. One small way I implement that is when I pull out of my driveway, get in my car, and just before I hang a left to go down our street, I stop and say, okay, I've got 12 minutes from here to the office. What should I be doing in that 12 minutes? And frequently it's getting my updates on rates, the market. And so I have videos that I watch on my phone. Other times I say, who out of state can I talk to? Because I'm always on Pacific time. So I look for clients in Florida on the East Coast. I know it's good to call them at that time. And so I'm always looking for at least 3 things. Every time I jump in the car, I've got a list either of people I need to call, and you judge that based on time zone, what time of day it is. But you should never have downtime.
Always stay busy. Always something to do. Right.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Well, let's jump real quickly into the D1Cs for life, and then I want to make sure that we get to your adoption story, because I think it's something that people are going to really enjoy and be inspired in hearing.
Cool. Let's do it. So as Al mentioned, happily married, coming up on 20 years, and 5 awesome kids. So life is full. We're blessed, and I feel very fortunate to be a father and a husband. So the 5 things that I've found helpful from a family perspective, the first is a date book for my wife. And so a number of years ago, 6 years ago at Christmas, I thought I was out of ideas. I'm like, I don't really know what my wife wants for Christmas. So I said, well, why don't I build a book out, and I'll plan 12 events for the next year. I'll buy the tickets. I'll get the babysitting. I'll put them on the calendar. I'll have it printed, and then I'll give her a book that is, these are our 12 events for the year, 1 a month. So I did it. She loved it. And the next year she said, this was great. She said, why don't we just forego presents altogether? I'll do the odd months, you do the even months. And so it's been a tradition we've done now for 6 years. And it is awesome. Every month it gives you something fun to look forward to. And selfishly, I can plan things that I may have wanted to do together that may have not been top of her list, and she can do the same. And we've really built some fun memories that way. So that'd be the first encouragement I would give you, is never let this business overtake you from a time perspective, and make time for the one you love the most.
Well, there's a lot of wisdom in that.
Oh, I was just thinking the same thing, Al. I mean, if you don't draw that line, if you don't set that boundary, this business will go 24/7, and you can wake up every day feeling behind, or, overwhelmed, or just like there's more to do than you can fit in a day. I mean, you've got to draw that line and stick to it to keep your balance, keep mentally healthy, keep your family and your relationships healthy.
Yeah. Oh, huge. Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, everybody gets into this to serve the ones that they love, but how many people, I mean, you've seen the collateral damage. you could probably name dozens of people. They've lost their family, marriages, kids, addictions, because this is a very demanding business. And so you've got to set those limits.
I love that.
So
I may or may not have written that one down to talk to my husband about tonight. I think I'm going to wait till Christmas.
Yeah, do it. Share your ideas. I think it could be everything. I mean, small, like meals out, one of them, I said, let's go play hide and seek at the mall. We'll go buy disguises at the thrift store. I'll go one end of the mall, you go the other, and we'll see who can spot each other first. So it just could be.
Now you're stretching me, Myron.
Trust me, I was stretching myself. But it could be any and everything. I mean, just have fun, and you'll have a great time together. So that's cool. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, I got this idea, in fact, just this year from someone I came across on YouTube. His name's Jesse Eitzler, and he said he talks about his business planning for the year, and he said he encourages everybody to plan 4 micro adventures a year, 1 a quarter. And he talked about the concept of how he pulled that from a friend of his who did that. And so I said, well, that's great. 4 of our kids are of age to where they would love doing that. So why don't we roll the date book out to the kids and let them plan 1 family micro adventure, if you will, per quarter. And each of them can then have a part. So it feels like we're doing some of these activities more as a family. And so that's one thing that we're incorporating this year. And it's fun to kind of hear their ideas and see, where they want to take that. So that's number 2. The third thing that we've done, and I pulled this from a book called Love Does. It's a book written by Bob Goff, fantastic book. And he just talks about how love is kind of an impromptu thing in life. Many times you show love not because of pre-planned things, but because of things that you do kind of spontaneously for somebody. And so for our kids on their 13th birthday, we said you can choose one event in Arizona, whatever you want, no limits, as long as it's confined within the state, and we'll do it. And he chose that to do that with his kids when they were 18, and he made the parameters a little bit bigger. But we boiled it down to Arizona when they turned 13. And so we've had 3 kids do that. And that's been a really fun thing to just kind of incorporate a sense of adventure and fun activities with the family as well.
Well, maybe a little easier for you guys because you're a big outdoor family, right? So your family loves to be outdoors doing outdoorsy stuff. So
yeah, but the kids are all different. Like, I mean,
are they?
Yeah, I mean, one's, initially said, I want to go courtside with the Suns. And then he changed his mind on that. Our daughter was more into the skydiving. Well, you got to be 18, bungee jumping. We tried to schedule that. And there was only one place in Arizona that did it. And I called the guy and he said, this is perfectly legal. But he said, just so you know, he said, if the cops do show up, he said, we're going to have to take it down real fast.
I feel like there's a disconnect between those 2 statements.
Yeah. Something tells me they didn't give you a waiver to sign either, did they?
I said, Charlie, no, we can't do that. So she just got hang gliding. So that was cool. So that was fun. So everyone, it just kind of shows you what they like to do. Right. And our boy chose to go up down the Colorado River on jet skis, which was great fun. I mean, so we've really built some cool memories doing that as well. The fourth one brings us back a little bit to the concept of our business and being an originator. A number of years ago, probably 10 years ago, was impressed upon me. I thought, can you believe the platform we have at Prime Lending and really any loan officer who's blessed with, 1, knowing the guidelines, working with investors, having employee loan programs to work with? How could they not be an expert when it comes to real estate investing? Because you're kind of getting a window from what everybody's doing all around the country with your clients. And so I took advantage of that a number of years ago, getting into small and multifamily properties. And I used the Prime Lending Employee Loan Program very exclusively as I was kind of building out real estate for the family. And I think that is so important as originators to be educating yourself and watching a lot of content online regarding real estate investing, property acquisition, and then also building out a personal balance sheet. I think that so often underwriting asks for them for businesses, and every good business has one. And you think, why don't people have them if businesses find them so valuable? And I'll bet if you went to the mall and asked 19 out of 20 people, what's your net worth? How does your balance sheet look? No one would know. And you think, how could that be where you don't know your assets, you don't know your liabilities and your net worth? And so I started with a very simple Excel spreadsheet, and I did this in 2012 is when I began. And it's just simple: a column for your assets, a column for your liabilities. And I would encourage anyone who doesn't have one, build one today. I mean, get started on that and take control of the opportunity we have to acquire real estate, and also to have a very, very close insight into family finances.
And that's a direct tie to what I think is your fifth point, which is making a lot of these family decisions around finances with your spouse.
Yeah. Yep. I think that's important. I would say it's going to play out different for everybody, based on your relationship with your spouse. But for me, I found that it's important, especially in referral partners, that not all referral partners are going to be a good fit for you. Sometimes they may not be aligned with your values. Other times there may be other principles that you believe in that they're not aligned with. And so oftentimes when we add referral partners to the team, I just quickly review it with my wife and say, here's who we're adding. And almost always, very seldom, we work with, we enjoy all varieties and all people, but there's been a couple where we've just said, these values are so different than what we really value. Is there common ground here? And we've had to turn a few people away from the team just because there's been such a disconnect. And then it keeps things good at home. You're just always kind of in sync regarding your business and how it's running, and they feel like they're a part of it as well.
Well, there's just so many different golden nuggets in what you shared, and I'm sure we could probably go on for another 15 or 20 minutes just kind of diving deep on a few, but I kind of want to make the transition now to your adoption story. And I want to set this up by saying that I don't know, it was about a year ago, somebody sent me a picture of Myron holding a little baby. And I looked at it and I was a little bit surprised because I thought to myself, well, I know Myron's too old to be having more kids, at least in my estimation. And I know that his kids are still pretty young, so these aren't grandkids. So I shot Myron a note and I said, hey, Myron, I saw this picture of you holding this baby. I think there's probably a story here. And so we ended up talking, and Myron told me just an amazing story. And honestly, we could go on for an hour to just talk about this story, and we've got about 10 minutes or so. So, Myron, take us through your adoption story. Just kind of start from the very beginning of when you saw the need, and then you and Becky meeting a need, because it's just an amazing story.
So I'll catch you up to speed on that. And we're in the process of adoption now. We've got about 3 months left of the process, hopefully before everything materializes. So that's the phase of it that we are in. As Al said at the beginning of the call, my wife and I attend church and we're Christians. And January, I think it was about January 5th of last year, she called me and I was on the phone, super busy day with clients. And she said, Myron, I kind of feel like the Lord's telling me to have you go talk to a gal who's out on the street in front of your office, and she's panhandling out there, and she's clearly pregnant, clearly has a need. But you should go talk to her and tell her that will help her and help the baby and things like that. And so I put that in the back of my mind and didn't do it. And she calls back at 1:00 and said, hey, have you gone and talked to her yet? I said, no, I haven't. She said, I think you better do it. So I went out and found the gal. She was out just outside of our office, and she said, my name's Myron and would love to help you and the baby, however that might look. I said, here's my office, here's my phone number. I said, you must call me um, if you have a need. And so I talked to her for about 10 minutes and clearly saw there was drugs involved and things of that nature. And then that was it. I never heard from her again, although she did fill me in on where they were living. And so my wife started making food at home and buying prenatal stuff and saying, hey, just go drop this off where they're living. And so I did that for a few days. And one day I never heard from her, so I wasn't sure what was happening. And so one day I did so, and I left my number on the tent and said, hey, here's my number again. Make sure to call me if you need help. And so one night I was just going to bed and my phone rings and they said, hey, we need help. We need to go to a different location. Can you bring your truck up and help us? So I called my brother-in-law and said, well, we'll do it. So I got to know them a little bit more that evening as we worked into the night, helping them relocate to a different area and things of that nature. And over the next 3 months, I mean, that's just how we built a friendship with them. Is my wife did a lot of cooking, and we would visit them and try to assist them in any ways that we could. And they would say some things like they wanted our help, and then weeks would go by and we wouldn't hear from them again. And so one night, my wife and I had got Chipotle, and we brought it out to them. We were just having dinner with them, and they had said that they probably would want our help, and how things played out. And so they called us one morning, early in the morning, and said, hey, I'm not feeling so good at all. I need to go to the hospital. So I picked her up, brought her there, and there was a lot of work for the doctors to do, just say that, to kind of check things out and find out, if the baby was alive, if it was healthy, things like that. And so we were having our team pipeline meeting. I had dropped her off and my wife was staying there with her at the hospital. And my wife called and said, you got to pray they don't think the baby's doing very well at all. And so we stopped our team meeting and prayed. And then moments later, my wife called and said, the baby was born and it's crying and it's doing well. And so that was the start of, I guess, kind of how the friendship came to be. And they did say that they wanted our family to foster the child. And so during that 4-month window of time, we got our foster license, kind of proactively thinking the need may be there. And it's just been a blessing to our family like you've never seen. I mean, our kids love him. We love him. And it's just someone that God has brought into our life through a very, I guess, unusual way, but we're so thankful for it. And it's just been just awesome.
Yeah, that's just amazing. That's an amazing story. And, one of the reasons why we wanted to put this podcast together is that we just have some amazing people that work at Prime Lending, and you're certainly one of them. And, the work stuff and the success that you've had, that's important. And that obviously has enabled you to be a provider for your family. And certainly it's put you in a situation where you could, now adopt your son. I believe it's Christian, right? Which is
yeah. So he goes so we call him Christian. His real name is Roland, and Roland John is what his name is. And so he's got 2 names.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
There's obviously you put on the news, and we just live in a broken world, right? And the news is oftentimes it's often bad. There's not a lot of encouraging things, but there's these things happening around us. There's this goodness happening around us, and there's people like you and others that, are seeing needs in their community, and you're meeting them. And this is obviously you're meeting a need in just an amazing way for not only this family, but for now your new son. So I just think it's an amazing story. I think it just when I first heard it, honestly, I was just like in awe. I thought to myself, I can't believe this. And we didn't have time to go into some of the details that Myron shared with me as to how it all came about. But just an amazing story. Certainly, we'll have to have you on for an update at some point in time and let us know how it's going. But it was just really cool to hear. And I know, KB, you've had a few. You've got some involvement with some adoption agencies, I think, in your neck of the woods.
I remember. I can remember exactly where I was when I first heard the story of you and Becky and the family, Myron, and kudos to Becky too, right? I love her heart and her tenacity, her persistence, right? We talked about persistence in business, and it's just as important personal. And I think of every prime lending spouse or significant other as essentially a non-paid prime lending employee, because we don't just do what we do for 8 hours, right? We bring it home, we live it, we breathe it, we care about the people that our clients and our realtors and everybody. But I personally have been involved with helping foster children for many years, ever since I was a teacher in the public schools, and saw some really, really heartbreaking situations. But the numbers, Myron, because you're in the middle of it now. But there's over 400,000 children in foster care nationally right now. I mean, that's just a staggering number. It's among the highest the numbers have ever been. And when you look at that number compared to how many foster families are available who are licensed to take in those children, it's a huge, huge difference. And like in Arizona alone, I knew North Carolina's numbers because that's where I live and that's where I volunteer. But in Arizona, there's 14,000 children in foster care right now, with approximately only 3,000 licensed foster homes. So if anyone is listening and that just moves your heart or makes you think about wondering what you could do to help, doesn't mean you have to adopt a newborn tomorrow. You can start with all kinds of small steps and help these kids. So reach out to one of us and we'll get you connected in a big way with folks that can help you give, if that's speaking to you.
You have. I mean, do it once and you'll say that was the best thing I ever did.
So
you'll want to do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Myron, you're a good man. I appreciate you taking the time to talk a little business and to share your family story with us. I think people are going to really enjoy hearing your story. And again, just thank you for the time, and we'll have to have you back and
always
give us an update.
Always. Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Before we go, just a quick reminder to subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts. And we also, again, want to encourage anybody that if you have a person in your office or somebody that works at Prime Lending that you think it would be a great opportunity for us to share their stories, send us an email at eastmeetswest@primelending.com, and we'd love to hear from everybody. So thanks again, and we'll see you next time.